The Arizona Cardinals lost to the Minnesota Vikings by a score of 34-26. Here are my observations from the game. First, the running game was a problem on both sides of the ball. The Cardinals couldn't stop Dalvin Cook or Alexander Mattison. The Vikings had 134 rushing yards in the first half alone, and by the end of the game, they had given up 173 yards on the ground. Cook and Mattison in particular gashed the Cardinals. Dalvin Cook had 111 yards and 1 touchdown, and Alexander Mattison had 40 yards and 1 touchdown. Kirk Cousins also had 22 yards and a touchdown. And overall, the Vikings averaged 6 yards per carry. This was not a good game for the Cardinals' run defense. But on the other side of the ball, the Cardinals couldn't run it themselves either. In particular, the running backs really struggled. Eno Benjamin had 9 carries for 22 yards and no touchdowns for a 2.4 yard average. Jordan Williams had 5 carries for 8 yards and a 1.6 yard average. Overall, the Cardinals only managed 78 yards rushing, and 36 of those came from Kyler Murray, with 12 coming from Rondale Moore. Now, some of this was game script. The Cardinals were playing from behind and trying to put up points. But when they did try to run the ball, they were not effective. And this also points to issues with the offensive line. The Cardinals were starting backups at left tackle, left guard, and center. Josh Jones, Cody Ford, and Billy Price. Though at this point, I guess we have to consider Cody Ford a starter because Pugh is out for the season. But either way, they struggled both in terms of run blocking and pass blocking. In addition to those struggles against the run, Kyler Murray was sacked 4 times and was under pressure for pretty much the whole game. And that pressure in particular contributed to one of those interceptions that Kyler threw, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Now, there were a couple bright spots. DeAndre Hopkins had an amazing game with 12 receptions, 159 yards, and a really nice touchdown. Rondale Moore also showed what he can do if this offense uses him correctly. As Cardinals fans know, we see all too many screen passes and handoffs and jet sweeps from Rondale Moore. Now, he is the guy you want to use in those kinds of plays, but if that's all they do with him, it becomes too predictable. But in this game, we saw him run some routes and get some nice plays, including a 38-yard touchdown. If the Cardinals mix up the routes and don't make things so predictable with Rondale Moore, he can have nice games like this. He has that kind of talent. There were also some other nice plays. Zach Ertz had a really nice diving touchdown. Isaiah Simmons forced a fumble and recovered the ball. And JJ Watt had a couple nice sacks this game. But obviously, it wasn't enough. Another observation is that this was a heavily penalized game for both teams. Each team had 10 penalties this game. And for the Cardinals, 2 of those penalties were against Trey McBride in the worst time possible. He had back-to-back holding penalties to set up a 1st and 27 in the beginning of the 3rd quarter. This was a point where the Cardinals needed to come back and put up some points, and that really hurt. My next observation is that Kyler had an up and down game. It was a mixed bag. He had those 2 interceptions, which were definitely a problem. Now, I will say one of those, he was under duress, throwing the ball from his own end zone, getting hit, just trying to get something. But ultimately, those turnovers were a key part of this game, so you can't write those off. But at the same time, he made some really nice plays that kept them in the game, including 3 touchdowns throws, one of which was a beautiful throw to DeAndre Hopkins, who made a really impressive one-handed catch. Overall, Kyler played well enough to keep them in this game. If they had better games by the offensive line or the defense, they would have won the game. But you can't ignore those interceptions. Those, along with the muffed punt by Greg Dortch, were the difference in this game. If you didn't have those turnovers again, the Cardinals would have won this one. But let's take a step back and look at this game in perspective. In a vacuum, this loss wouldn't be a cause for concern. The Cardinals were in a tight game with a team that is now 6-1, playing that team at home. Yes, I know the Cardinals have played better on the road and play poorly at home, but that's sort of an anomaly. Teams are supposed to play well at home, and that's what the Vikings did this game. And in a vacuum, losing to a good team at their home isn't the end of the world. As a team that's fighting to turn their season around, the Cardinals could ill afford this loss. As it stands, the playoff race in the NFC is really tight. 2 of those wildcard spots are currently slated to come out of the NFC East, and all the teams competing for that last wildcard spot currently have either 3 wins or 4 wins. So when you look at it, the Cardinals are still only 1 game out of that wildcard spot. But this also means there's a logjam in that competition for the wildcard spot, and there just isn't room for error for a team that's hoping to be that 7th playoff team. The Cardinals have an uphill climb just to get into the playoffs as a wildcard team. It's absolutely possible, but the odds are against them, and they're going to need to go on a winning streak to do that. Now, the fact that the offense is finally putting up some points is a glimmer of hope. They did put up 26 points here, but this team has a lot to prove, and the odds are they're going to be on the outside looking in. What did you think about this game? Let me know in the comments below. Also, please be sure to click like and subscribe to my channel for more Arizona Cardinals content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on The Cardinal Rule.